If this video has found you, it's not a coincidence. There is something in you quiet, unseen, yet undeniably powerful that led you here. You may think you clicked this out of curiosity or habit, but if you're honest with yourself, there's probably a feeling you've been carrying lately, a sense that something is shifting, that something is calling you higher. Maybe you can't explain it, and maybe you don't even have proof. But deep down, you know it, your life is about to change. Neville Goddard once said, "There is no such thing as chance. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact." That one sentence holds the key to why this moment, right here, right now, matters. You are not watching this because of an algorithm or luck. You're watching this because your inner world is aligning with something new. A deeper version of yourself is waking up, and it brought you here to remind you you're not lost. You're not stuck. You're on the edge of something you've been preparing for, whether consciously or not. When change is near, the outside world doesn't always tell you. In fact, it often looks the same or worse. Confusion increases. Emotions feel heavier. The things that used to comfort you no longer satisfy. You start pulling away from old habits, old relationships, old thoughts. Not because you're trying to, but because they no longer fit. And that's the sign. The discomfort, the restlessness, the feeling that something big is coming. These are not signals of failure. They are proof that the old self is breaking apart. The one you used to be is dissolving. And in its place, the version you've imagined, the one you've dreamed of, visualized, hoped for, is starting to take shape. But it doesn't happen with noise or drama. Real transformation is subtle, silent, internal. Before your life changes out there, it must shift in here, in your imagination, your beliefs, your self-concept. This is why you're here, not to chase something new, but to remember something eternal. Your inner world controls the outer one. You are the cause. You are the center. And whether you know it or not, you've been preparing for this moment. This message is not here to entertain. It's here to remind. You've asked. You've imagined, you've persisted, even through doubt, even when nothing seemed to move. But in the world of consciousness, delay is never denial. Sometimes it takes time for your outer reality to catch up to what you already created within. And when you're close, when the change is just beneath the surface, certain messages find you. Words begin to feel like they're speaking directly to you. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to prove it. But you do need to listen. Because something inside you already knows. It's almost time, not to wish, not to wait, but to step forward. And this video, this moment, might just be the sign your future self has been trying to send. There is something most people don't talk about when it comes to change. It doesn't always arrive with a burst of light. It doesn't always come with motivation or clarity. Sometimes it starts with confusion, with silence, with restlessness that has no name. You may find yourself feeling distant from your old life, not because something dramatic has happened, but because deep down, you no longer belong there. The conversations feel different. The goals you once chased no longer move you. You're not broken, you're being rebuilt. Neville Goddard taught that all outer change is preceded by an inner reordering. He called it a change of consciousness. And while those words may sound mystical, they're deeply personal. A change of consciousness often begins with an invisible breaking down, not of your life, but of your identity. The version of you that accepted lack, doubt, fear, or limitation begins to fall away. And when that starts to happen, it can feel like things are going wrong. But what's actually happening is this. Your old self is crumbling to make space for the one you've imagined. The discomfort you feel isn't the problem, it's the proof. You're being stretched into a new version of yourself. That inner tension. It's what happens when the current reality no longer fits your true desire. You feel torn between two versions of yourself, the one you've known and the one that's emerging. And that in-between space, that silent, confusing, uncertain place, is sacred. That is the cocoon where transformation happens. Neville often spoke of living from the end, occupying mentally the state of the wish fulfilled. But before you can live from the end, something inside you has to first let go of the beginning. You can't fully assume the new if you're still emotionally anchored to the old. That's why the inner stirring comes first. That's why life feels like it's falling apart when it's actually being reordered. You're not failing, you're transitioning. In these moments, you may notice strange patterns, feeling emotionally overwhelmed without cause, experiencing sudden fatigue, losing interest in things that once excited you. These are all signals that your inner world is realigning. The story you've been telling yourself, silently, mentally, unconsciously, is being rewritten. The script is changing, and because the external world is just a mirror, that new story must eventually reflect itself outward. But don't expect applause, don't expect signs and wonders. Expect silence, expect stillness. The real proof of transformation is not noise, it's neutrality. It's waking up and no longer reacting the same way. It's facing the same problem but responding with a new mindset. That's the sign, not that the world changed, but that you did. And as Neville always emphasized, your outer world is nothing but an echo. It doesn't change until you do. So when you feel that restlessness, that quiet shift, that soft whisper that says, I don't belong in the old anymore, don't panic, don't resist. That's your new self being born. This is why so many give up right before the shift, because the discomfort makes them believe something's wrong. But if you knew what was coming, if you knew the version of you that is already forming, you would bless the tension. You would thank the confusion, because those very moments are signs that the change you've asked for, the one you've imagined, prayed for, persisted in, is almost here. You're not lost. You're shedding. You're not stuck. You're unfolding. You're not behind. You're right on time. Everything you feel right now is part of the preparation, the sacred pulling apart of the old so the new can emerge. So breathe. Stay still. Don't rush. Don't seek proof outside of you. The proof is already within, in your stillness, in your new awareness, in your quiet refusal to go back to who you used to be. And if you hold that new identity just a little longer, if you persist in it even when the world gives you no evidence, everything you desire must come, because it's not coming to you, it's coming from you. You've likely heard it before. Consciousness creates reality. But what does that truly mean? Neville Goddard didn't teach wishful thinking. He didn't promise magic. What he revealed was far more powerful, that you are always creating not by force or effort, but by the state of being you occupy within. That means your life as it is right now is not a random sequence of events. It is a reflection, a mirror, a result of the thoughts you've believed in, the assumptions you've persisted in, the identity you've accepted as I. Everything begins in the unseen, not in the outer world, but in the invisible realm of your imagination. Neville said, man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us and we in him. The eternal body of man is the imagination, and that is God himself. He was pointing to a deep truth. Whatever you vividly imagine and believe yourself to be, with repetition, feeling, and persistence, will shape the world around you. So if your life feels stuck, it's not because your circumstances are fixed. It's because the inner story hasn't changed. The thoughts may vary, the emotions may rise and fall, but beneath it all is a consistent assumption, an identity, a quiet I am that has been silently running the show. That is what creates your reality. Not what you want, but what you are. You don't attract what you desire, you attract what you are conscious of being. And this is where everything shifts, when you realize that you are not meant to chase a new life, but to assume it, to step into it internally, to feel it as true, even before there's proof. That feeling as if it were already so is the bridge between your inner world and your outer experience. This is why Neville placed so much importance on imagination, because it's not just fantasy, it's creative force. When you imagine something with intensity and conviction, and repeat it silently within yourself, you are planting a seed in the subconscious. And once that seed is accepted, once it feels natural, even familiar, your reality bends to reflect it. But here's what most people miss. The results don't show up instantly, and that delay causes them to doubt. They see nothing changing and assume nothing's working. But the outer world operates on a kind of lag, a reflection of yesterday's assumptions, not today's. So when you begin to consciously change who you are on the inside, the world may not respond right away. And that's okay, because it must respond eventually. That is law. So ask yourself not what do I want, but who am I being? Who do I assume myself to be in silence? When no one's watching, when I'm not trying to impress or pretend. If you continue identifying with the version of you that is still waiting, still doubting, still feeling separate from what you desire, then your world must echo that. But the moment you shift, the moment you mentally move into the identity of I am already, I am it now, I am chosen, worthy, ready, everything begins to move, not because you're forcing it, but because you've become it. That's the power of consciousness. It's not about working harder or begging reality to change. It's about returning again and again to the state you choose to live from, until it no longer feels like a performance, until it becomes your truth. Because once you are it in consciousness, even if the world hasn't caught up yet, it's already done. The bridge of incidents will appear. The people, places, timing, and opportunities will begin to arrange themselves around your assumption. You won't need to control them. You'll just need to stay faithful. And yes, there may be moments of doubt. There may be old thoughts that try to pull you back. But you are not those thoughts anymore. You are not the old story. You've seen something deeper. You've touched a new identity. And your only task now is to remain in it. That's where true creation happens, not in the world around you, but in the silence within. Not by reacting to circumstances, but by deciding who you are regardless of them. Because your consciousness is the cause. Your imagination is the tool. And your assumption is the beginning of everything. We've been taught to chase, to earn, to struggle and strive for the life we desire. But Neville Goddard offered a completely different way, not rooted in effort, but in assumption. He taught that everything you experience in life stems from who you believe yourself to be, not what you do, not what you hope for, but what you assume as your identity. This is the core of the law of assumption. And it's simple. Whatever you assume to be true, especially about yourself, is exactly what the world reflects back to you. Not eventually, not by chance, but by design. Your outer reality is the shadow of your inner identity. You do not get what you want. You get what you are. If you walk through life assuming you're unlucky, unseen, or stuck, the world will confirm that belief at every turn. If you carry the identity of someone who is always waiting, always trying, always hoping, you stay in the cycle of almost, but never quite arriving. But if you shift that identity, even silently, even when everything around you tells you otherwise, the world begins to reorganize itself around your new self-concept. So ask yourself, right now, who am I being? Not what am I wishing for? Not what am I working toward? But who am I assuming I am in the quiet moments when no one is around? Because that assumption is not hidden. It's being broadcast constantly through your mood, your reactions, your expectations, through the posture of your heart. And life listens to that signal more than anything else. This is why so many people never manifest the change they seek, because they pray for something new, while continuing to identify as someone old. They speak affirmations of love, while assuming they're still alone. They visualize abundance, but deep down feel unworthy. And Neville taught us clearly, to be transformed, the whole basis of your thoughts must change. That means we must stop thinking from the state of lack and begin thinking from the state of fulfillment. This is not pretending. This is becoming. And it begins not with words, but with a shift in identity. Not saying, I will be confident, but I am confident now. Not saying, I will attract love, but I am loved and chosen now. You're not waiting to become that version of yourself. You're choosing to occupy that role now in mind, in feeling, in quiet repetition, until the world catches up. The most powerful version of you is already within you, but you must assume that identity before you see it. You must wear it mentally, feel it emotionally, carry it consistently, even when your current reality disagrees, especially when it disagrees. Neville emphasized this over and over again. The world is not reacting to what you say out loud. It's reacting to the state you live from. So if you're serious about change, stop asking what you should do and start asking who you must become. Because when you shift your self-concept, everything else begins to move. And don't wait for permission. Don't wait for external signs. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. The shift happens the moment you say internally, I am. And if you hold that inner state, with faith, with repetition, with stillness, it will solidify. You will move differently, seek differently, attract differently. And that's when life has no choice but to reflect it. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. You're not pretending to be someone you're not. You're remembering who you truly are. You're removing the layers of doubt and fear that never belonged to you. And in their place, you're standing in quiet certainty, the version of you who already is. That's the law of assumption. That's the identity shift that changes everything. There comes a moment, not always loud, not always obvious, when everything inside you begins to shift. And while the outside world may still look the same, you can feel it. Subtle, quiet, yet undeniable. These are not coincidences. These are signs, confirmation that your inner world has moved and reality is adjusting in response. One of the first signs is a sense of emotional intensity, sometimes sadness, sometimes euphoria, sometimes both in the same hour. You may cry without reason, laugh without cause, or feel a strange sense of peace in the middle of chaos. That's not instability. That's a clearing, a shedding of old energy. You are no longer a match for your old story, and the body and mind are catching up to the shift. Another sign? You lose interest in the things that once consumed you, the habits, the people, the routines that once felt familiar, now feel foreign. That's because the version of you who needed those things is fading. You're not running away from your past. You're simply growing beyond it. That disinterest isn't apathy, it's elevation. You're rising and your surroundings haven't caught up yet. You might also begin to see repeated messages, numbers, phrases, reminders, not because they're magic, but because your mind is tuned differently. You're more aware, more sensitive to alignment. And in that awareness, you begin to notice the language of change all around you. But the most powerful sign of all, a strange, unshakable sense that you don't have to try so hard anymore. You feel like the desire is already fulfilled. You no longer chase it. You simply accept it. That inner relaxation, that gentle knowing, is the ultimate sign that the bridge of incidents has begun to unfold. Neville often said, signs follow. They do not precede, which means these signals aren't instructions to do something. They're proof that what you've assumed inwardly has already begun to solidify. So don't chase the signs. Let them reassure you. Let them remind you that what you've claimed in consciousness is now unfolding in form. You're not waiting. You're aligning. And when your inner state becomes dominant, when it feels more real than your current circumstances, the shift becomes inevitable. If you were told that one simple practice done in silence, without anyone knowing, could change your entire life, would you believe it? Because that's exactly what Neville Goddard revealed, that your inner speech, the words you say to yourself when no one else can hear, is the true architect of your reality. You don't manifest from what you say out loud. You manifest from what you whisper to yourself over and over again, in your thoughts, in your reactions, in your assumptions. That internal conversation, repeated long enough, becomes your identity, and your identity becomes your world. Neville wrote, "Your inner talking is the cause of the outer talking." Stop talking to yourself as the discarded and start talking to yourself as the loved, the wanted, the successful. This isn't about fake positivity. It's about choosing words that match the version of you that already exists, the one you're becoming. You may not realize it, but most of the time, your inner speech is rehearsing the past, repeating your limitation, replaying old stories. But the moment you take control, the moment you begin to speak to yourself with love, with belief, with calm authority, everything begins to change. Say it in your head. I am already chosen. I am already successful. I am already in the state of my desire fulfilled. And then say it again. Not frantically, not to force it, but gently, calmly, as a fact. This is not a mantra. It's a shift in identity. Over time, your subconscious accepts it. And once it does, your reality mirrors it without resistance. But here's the secret Neville rarely spoke of directly. The most powerful inner speech is not just about words, it's about silence. The silence that follows a deep assumption, that sacred quiet after the I am, when nothing more needs to be said. That's the moment it sinks in. That's when the inner man, the deeper self, accepts the new state. You don't need to shout. You don't need to convince anyone. The real work is silent. It's internal. And the world changes not when you scream it, but when you no longer need to. So start today. Speak only what you want to be true. Let your mind rehearse the future, not the past. Let your inner speech match the end you've claimed. And when your thoughts wander, gently bring them back. Again and again, until the new identity becomes natural, effortless. That is the unseen power. That is the transformation no one can take from you. And once your inner speech changes, the rest of your life must follow. Remaining in your new state is the real work, not because it's hard, but because your old self will try to pull you back. It will whisper doubts, replay old stories, and ask for evidence. But remember, the world outside you doesn't shift first. You do. Your job is not to force the change, but to persist in the assumption that the change is already done. When Neville said, "Live from the end," he meant to mentally occupy the version of you that already has what you desire, even when your senses say nothing has changed. It's easy to believe when the results are visible, but true transformation happens when you stay faithful, even in silence, even in delay, even when nothing outside confirms what you know inside. This is where most give up, in the in-between. When the old hasn't fully gone and the new hasn't fully arrived. But that space is not emptiness. It's creation. It's where your belief is being tested, not by life, but by your own willingness to remain steady, to not be shaken by appearances, to not rush into panic or self-doubt. The moment you run back to the old identity because nothing is happening, you interrupt the bridge. But the moment you stay calmly, faithfully, quietly, something unseen begins to solidify. You stop looking for proof because you've already become it. When you're able to hold that inner state, not perfectly, but consistently, life begins to match it in the most natural ways. You don't need to know how. You don't need to force movement. Everything will come through what Neville called the bridge of incidents. Events that may look ordinary on the surface, but are all part of the unfolding, and they don't happen after you assume the new identity. They happen because you did. That's why this video found you. Not because you needed a new technique, but because you were ready to remember. You've been doing the work, maybe not perfectly, maybe not loudly, but you've been shifting quietly, internally. And this message is your confirmation. You're not off track. You're not late. You're not being punished. You're being aligned. The change you're waiting for isn't somewhere far away. It's already been accepted within you. And now, everything outside is beginning to move. You may not see it yet, but you can feel it. That's the real signal, the deeper knowing, the quiet pull. It's the feeling of no longer searching, because you've already found it inside. So let this be your turning point. Don't go back to doubting. Don't shrink to fit your past. The version of you that has been waiting is no longer who you are. From this moment forward, walk as if it's already done. Speak as if it's already yours. Think from the end, not toward it. You don't need to tell anyone. You don't need to announce your shift. Just live it and let the silence speak for you. Because when you become the version of you who already has it, the world cannot help but respond. You didn't stumble upon this message. It found you. It met you at a moment when your inner world was already preparing for the shift. Not because something was missing, but because you were ready to stop searching and start becoming. Your life doesn't change when the outside world agrees with you. It changes when you agree with the new version of yourself, when you hold it, believe it, and walk in it, no matter what appears before your eyes. Neville taught that everything, every condition, every outcome is a shadow of your sustained assumption. So ask yourself now, with honesty and love, what have I been assuming about myself? And is it time to choose something higher? This isn't about speed. It's not about results. It's about becoming the one who no longer waits, no longer begs, no longer doubts. The one who lives in quiet certainty, who speaks gently to themselves in the silence, who no longer identifies with what was, because they've stepped fully into what is. And if you can hold that, even for a little while, everything must change. Not by force, but by alignment. Not by pressure, but by inner permission. And that's what you've just given yourself, permission to be the version of you who already has the desire fulfilled. So stay in it. Return to it. Rest in it. Not as a performance, but as a truth. And as you do, the world will soften around you. It will bend. It will shift. It will reflect what you now embody. Everything you desire is already yours, if your focus can hold it. If this message touched something in you, if you felt seen, understood, or reminded of what you already know deep down, then don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to Ignis Mindset for more powerful teachings grounded in Neville Goddard's timeless wisdom. And remember, it's already done. Now, live from that place,